Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Social Sciences and Humanities Open Competition webinar. My name is Maudie Lohaus, and I am here today with my colleagues. Sitting left from me on the left side is Nina Rijns-Kleinkamp. She is the secretary for the Open Competition XS round. And on my right side is Ilke van Dongen. And together with me, he is a secretary for the Open Competition M round. Great that you're all here. Today we will give you some information about the Open Competition rounds. First, we will start with a session about the XS round. Nina will give a presentation about the XS round, after which you will be able to ask any questions you have. And after this session, at 11 o'clock, Ilko and I will start with the session about the Open Competition M round. We will give a presentation, and afterwards you will also be able to ask us questions you have. All right, Nina, I would like to give you the floor to give your presentation.
Thank you. So, welcome at the webinar of the Social Sciences and Humanities domain of the Open Competition. As my colleague introduced me already, my name is Nina Rijns-Kleinkamp, and I'm here to represent the extra small team. So, we would like to start off with a Mentimeter. So, please go to the website www.menti.com and use the code on top of the presentation. The code is 15380155. And then we can start Mentimeter, because I have several questions for you, because you know who we are and we would like to know who you, the audience, are, so we can adjust our presentations to the audience. So I hope everyone is able to start a Mentimeter, and we can start with the first question. So the first question is why you are interested in this funding instrument. We're already receiving answers from you. Well, most of you are potential applicants, and there are also grant advisors. Well, that's great to hear, because that's our target audience. And there's also someone with another affiliation. Well, great to have you all. We'll go to, did everybody? Yes, everybody. So most of you are potential applicants. Well, that's great. So we'll go to the next question, because we would like to know what your academic field of expertise is. Because the Social Sciences and Humanities domain is split into 6 domains. Or not domains, but we have disciplines, main disciplines, 6 main disciplines. So great to see that everybody has different main fields of discipline. That's great, because as you all know, we have these 6 main disciplines, and we will ask you to submit your proposals in different disciplines. This is a great image. I see psychology, communication. I think all kinds of disciplines are represented today, so that's great. We have 84 answers. We'll go to the next question. So, of course, we prepared a presentation for you, but I would like to know if there's some particular subject you would like to hear more about. I have good news because I will go through all the subjects, but I would like to know if there is a specific topic you would like to know more about. I can see that most of you are interested in the assessment procedure. That's good to know. Also the aim of the program and the proposal documents. Yeah, so okay, so the most people who are present would like to know more about the assessment procedure. And second is the aim of the program. And third is the proposal documents. Well, also the other topics will come across. So that's good to know that you're interested in all topics, but I will make sure the assessment procedure will be explained to you as well. Then I would like to start with, so thank you for using the Mentimeter. For now we will stop using the Mentimeter and we'll go to the presentation. Later on we will use the Mentimeter again when my colleagues will present the presentation on the Open Competition M. I have some notes, so I won't forget anything because there's a lot of information I would like to share with you today. So the extra small is, oh yes. So first we start with the presentation on the extra small. I start the presentation and afterwards you can ask questions. You can place your questions in the chat and we'll come back to you with those with answers to those questions after the presentation. So this presentation about the XS will take about till 11, and then at 11 we start with the presentation on the Open Competition M. So the XS, the Open Competition Extra Small, is a program within the Open Competition. And the Open Competition is renewed this year. And the Open Competition Extra Small is a pilot program because it's a new program for the social sciences and humanities domain. And this program deviates from other programs. Well, each program is different, of course, from the others, but this one is different because not the applicants are also the assessors in this program. And therefore, you would like to know more about the assessment procedure. I would like to start off with mentioning that here at NWO, the Dutch Research Council, we use a lot of abbreviations. So I would like to explain the most important ones I will use today, which is Social Sciences and Humanities domain is shortened by SSH, Open Competition is shortened by OC, and extra small is XS, and the Dutch Research Council is the NWO. If I use other abbreviations which are not familiar to you, please let us know, because here at NWO we use, we just make, we love to use abbreviations. So I'm now going to talk you through the program, because the program, everything you need to know about the Open Competition Extra Small is in the call for proposals. This document is available on our website, and I will highlight the most important things of the procedures. But if you have any questions, you can always mail us, or you can look in the call for proposals. So I would like to start off with the aim of the program, because the extra small grant is something new, and the extra small grants are kind of seed grants. They're intended to support promising ideas, innovative and more speculative initiatives, and to explore high-risk, high-gain research, or the possibility to develop an own innovative line of research. So, in short, this program is here to facilitate small projects that contribute to the advancement of science. And these innovative research ideas need to be managed within a year's time. So it's a small project, maximum 12 months, one innovative idea. And so as it's a short project, we also provide a short assessment process. So the time between the development of an idea and also granting the idea so you are able to proceed with your research idea is short. So this program we have at the moment is for 4 rounds of proposals. So we have 1 call for proposals for 4 rounds of proposals. So in short, that's the aim of the program. And for this program, we have 12 million euros available. We started off with a budget of 8 million euros, but we had very good news. The Ministry of Education, Culture and Science has granted us extra money for the open science, for the open competition. And this program, the Social Sciences and Humanities Open Competition Extra Small Pilot, received an additional 4 million euros. So in total we have 12 million euros, which is divided equally over the 4 rounds. So per round we have 3 million euros available, which means we can, in principle, grant 60 projects per round. It's in principle because the maximum budget you can ask for is 50,000 euros per project. If people will ask less than 50,000 euros, and we have a remaining budget which will make it possible to grant another project, we of course do so. So for now, at least we have 3 million euros per round, and we hope to be able to at least grant 60 projects per round. So who is this program for? Well, this program is for the people, for you, who work in the social sciences and humanities domain and who obtained a PhD between 5 and 10 years ago. And the submission deadline of the round you apply for is also the reference date of the promotion date, which means for round one, the submission deadline is the 8th of September. So then you must have obtained your doctorate degree between 9 September 2012 and 7 September 2017. You're eligible to apply if you have a tenured position and therefore a paid position for an indefinite period, or a tenure track agreement. So these are the 2 flavors we have. A letter of intent for either a tenure track position or a tenure track agreement is not sufficient. So I would like to talk you through the how to submit your proposal. Well, your proposal consists of 3 documents. We have the application form, the budget form, and the information form, and all 3 documents are part of your proposal. These documents are available on the program page on our website and also in ISAC. So the website link is on the screen if you haven't already found our program page. So first I would like to talk you through the application form. Well, more information about the application form is available in the application form itself, and also, of course, in the call for proposals. So I would like to highlight some information. The application needs to be written in English. That's very important. Something else which is very important is the proposal is anonymous. And why? Because of the assessment procedure. Because the application you write is a pitch to the assessors. it's a pitch of your research idea. It's not, don't have to sell yourself, you don't have to sell your accomplishments. It's just the research idea is central to your application. So that is what you're pitching to the assessors. And the assessors are also the other applicants. Therefore, your proposal needs to be written anonymous. So we have some guidelines for your proposal, how to write an anonymous proposal. So you should neither include your own name or the name of your research group. You should also not include details of any affiliations with institutes or knowledge institutions. You should not include references to any publications that you have authored or co-authored. And you should also not include names of any partners or potential partners. So that's very important. And also your proposed project should not last more than 12 months. The maximum duration of a proposed project within the extra small is 12 months. So, please keep in mind, while writing your proposal, is the two assessment aspects. We have two assessment aspects in this program, which is the innovative aspect and the feasibility of the research plan. So the innovative aspect is how innovative is this idea? Is it indeed a new path of research? Yeah, you have to sell your idea, your really great idea. And that's really important. So that's one of the aspects. And the second one is your idea, it must be managed. It must be doable within the 12 months time and also with the proposed budget. So keep those in mind while writing your proposal. Then we have the two other forms, the budget form and the information form. Well, the budget form and the budget guidelines are there to facilitate your research idea. So there are not a lot of guidelines for your budget. There are some. So you can request a maximum of 50,000 euros. And important is that you can only request budget that's vital to realize your project. You can ask for personnel costs. You cannot ask for a PhD position. You can, however, ask for a postdoc position and also for research leave. And if you ask for personnel costs, always the UNL and NFU salary tables apply. If you have any other specific budget questions, you can always mail us with your questions. Or you can also, of course, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat and we will answer them later. But if you have very specific budget questions, you can mail us to them and we will reply to you. In the information form, we ask you to list your main discipline and your sub-discipline. And this is important because if you, for example, you wrote an application and your application is part of the discipline, behavior and education, you submit your proposal and select behavior and education and you select your sub-discipline. Then your proposal is part of panel 1. If you list your proposal in a different panel, because your main discipline is different, then you're part of panel 2 or panel 3. And this is important and also to keep in mind while writing your proposal, because when you're part, for example, of panel 1, because of your main discipline, also the assessors will be part of panel 1. And in panel 1 is not only behavior and education, but also economics and business administration. And the people, the researchers, the applicants with backgrounds in these disciplines will be assessing your application. So therefore we ask you to write your proposal for a broad audience. So keep also your audience in mind, please, while writing your proposal. And that's why it's also important to list your main discipline and subdiscipline in this information form. So I would like you to talk through the process of submitting your proposal. So first, you will submit your proposal, of course. In Isaac with the 3 documents, and then you will receive an automatic generated confirmation of receipt. Then the process starts for us with the consideration of the proposal and looking at the suitability of the proposal. So first we will ask and we will check if the application meets the conditions we wrote down in the call for proposal. And within 2 weeks after we receive your application, and we will come back to you and maybe we'll ask you to do some administrative changes. And we will give you 5 working days to make those changes to your application. Also, we will check if your application meets the 6 main disciplines of the social sciences and humanities domain, because this this program is specifically for researchers in the social sciences and humanities domain. So only these researchers within the 6 main disciplines are eligible to apply. So we have to check that, and we have to check if you submitted your proposal in the correct panel. Because that's very important for the next step, the separation of the proposals in packages and groups. Because as I already showed that so here's the next slide. So if you all the proposals we receive for in panel 1, we have to divide in a group A and a group B, because group A will assess group B and vice versa. But we need to do that in a proper way, of course. So all the applications we receive in one panel, we make a list of all the names of the people we receive an application from, and we send that out to the researchers in that panel, and we ask you for your conflicts of interests. With that information, we are able to create a group A and a group B. So group A is the group of researchers and their applications who don't have conflicts of interest with group B. And group A is able to assess group B, and group B is able to assess the applications of group A. And if we know the conflicts of interest, the applications you will assess will be randomly assigned. We have a program which does that, so it's not handwork, but it's automatically generated if we know your conflicts of interest. So every applicant who is also an assessor will receive 10 applications to assess. And we ask you to assess these anonymous proposals by reading only the first form, the application form. The assessors won't receive the budget form or the information form. These are information only the NWO needs. So based on the application form, we ask you to assess 10 applications which you will need to rank. So the 10 applications you rank from 1 to 10, and the first one you think is the best one, you rank at level 1, and you think the application you think is second best, you put on second place, the third on third, and so on. You also have a room, and we also ask you to give a short explanation of why you rank that application at first or at second or on third. So you not only have to rank the applications, but you also have to explain the ranking you give you give the application. So from each assessor, we receive the ranking, and we will create, and at NWO, we create a final ranking. Not one final ranking, we create 6 final rankings, because we have 3 million euros, and we, per group, there will be a final ranking, and the 3 million euros will be divided to those 6 end rankings. In that way, you can assess the other applicants which are in which you're not in competition with. So you're in competition with your own group, and you're assessing the applications of a different group. Well, based on those 6 end rankings, we will ask our domain, the board of our domain, the Social Sciences and Humanities board, to grant the 3 million euros over these 6 end rankings. And then we will, of course, let you know if you have received a grant or not. So how does this look like in a timetable? So this is the timetable for the first round. So the deadline is the 8th of September. And then we start at NWO, we start with looking at a proposal, looking if it meets the conditions of the call for proposals, and we come back to you with asking you for your conflicts of interest. And then we come back so we'll come first. We will ask you about your conflicts of interest, and second, we might come back to you with asking you to make some corrections on your proposal, to make sure everything is in order and it's anonymous. So we have time to do that till October 4th. And in the meanwhile, while we're receiving from you your conflicts of interest, we divide the panels. We divide the panels in groups. And then on the 4th of October, you will receive a mail from us with the 10 applications for you to assess, for which you have 10 days to do so. And so the deadline for informing us about your assessment is the 18th of October. And then we will process that information and make the end rankings and ask the board of the domain for approval. And by mid-November, we can inform all the applicants about the outcome of the assessment. So for each project the NWO is granting, it needs to start up within 6 months of time. And the duration of these projects, these XS projects, are a maximum of 12 months. So it's important to know that you can only submit an application in one of the 4 rounds. You can only submit one time. So it's up to you, if you're eligible, to see when you would like to submit your application, because we have 4 deadlines, 4 rounds. So you can see what's most convenient for you. So the first deadline is the 8th of September. The second one is the 15th of November. Then we have two rounds in next year. 9 February and 20 April are the other submission deadlines. So that's the very fast explain to you the extra small program. And I would like to go to the part of the questions. So if you have any questions, you can place them in the chat, and we will. I will try to provide an answer. If you have very personal or specific questions, you can also send us an email at the XS email address, which is on the sheet.
Okay, thank you, Nina, for your very clear presentation. I think it's so clear that I don't see any questions yet. So I see from my colleague who's sitting at the back managing these questions that there are really no questions. So please don't hesitate to ask us any questions. Now is the time to ask them. And you can get a really fast answer. So
I have one question which we frequently receive, which I would like to talk you through. Because the question we ask frequently is if researchers are able to submit an application to the VD and also to the Open Competition Extra Small. Well, this is possible. So the answer in short is yes, but you have to keep two things in mind. The first thing is that NWO doesn't do double financing. So if you submit proposals in both the VD and the Extra Small, they need to be different projects. There cannot be any overlap. They need to be completely separated. And the second thing you have to keep in mind is the timeline of the VD and also the timeline of the Extra Small round you submit in. So you are able to do your work for the VD process and also be able to assess to be an assessor in the Extra Small round.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Maybe we could also go to, if we don't have any questions yet. Oh, there is a question. Okay, I see that there is a question. So I'm waiting while it will show up live on my iPad. So I see that the typing has started, so it's a very exciting process, this. But also, we would like to clarify and we would like to point out again that so the XS is for applicants who are 5 to 10 years past their promotion date, and if you want to apply to the OCM, Open Competition M, which we will talk about at 11, then you'll have to be you have to have received your PhD at a minimum 10 years ago on the deadline of the 1st of November. But we will talk about that later. All right. So I see a first question here. Let's see. There is. Okay. Let me see if I get this question. It states a doctorate in the social sciences domain. Does this mean there is no cross-discipline? For example, health scientists.
Good question. Well, we have to look at that. I don't immediately have an answer to that question. Would it be possible to send us an email? And I will look into that because, to be honestly, I don't know at the moment. I have to discuss this with colleagues, if this is possible.
Well, that's also a clear answer. Maybe we can repeat the email address?
Yes, it's sgw-ocxs@nwo.nl. So if you have any questions about XS, you can send them to this mail address. The Open Competition M has a different mail address.
Yes, That's true. Okay, thank you. Okay, we can go to the next question. I see a lot of questions popping up now. So what is meant by the tenure track agreement? Nina, can you explain that? Or is that, yeah.
Well, as I understand it, there are, of course, several type of contracts you can have at a university. And for this specific call, we wrote down in the call that you need to have a tenured position and therefore a paid position for an indefinite period, or a tenure track agreement. And a tenure track agreement is an agreement you receive from your institution, which is a track towards a more permanent position at the university or the institute you work for. So you have to ask your institution if they have any. If you don't have one, you can ask it, because it depends per institution. So I think universities have such contracts, have such tenure track agreements, but maybe other institutions which are eligible in this call might not have these kind of tenure track agreements.
Maybe I can also, because I think in the Open Competition M we have the same criteria condition. So the thing is that in the subsidy
in the MWO grant rules.
In the grant rules, thank you. I was going to translate it directly from Dutch to English, which doesn't work. There it gives a specific definition of what we mean by a tenure track agreement, and like Nina says, it's a track that should lead to the prospect of a permanent position, and in the long term prospect to be promoted to a professor. That's what we mean by tenure track, and also this needs to be written down. So it needs to be agreed by both parties. It doesn't have to be in a contract of employment exactly, but it has to be written down. It has to be agreed on in a written form by both parties. That's what we mean by tenure track. And also, if you think this is too vague or you want to read it again, please also check our grant rules, the grant rules by NWO. They are on our website, so, or you can just Google them and you'll get there faster, I think. But they are on our website, so you can reread them. Then we have another question for you, Nina. Can the budget be used for data collection, experiments, and research assistant hire?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, yes, yes.
Okay, thanks. Is there an assessment form for reviewers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the assessors will receive a form. So first we will look at the conflicts of interest, and then divide the panel into two groups, the group A and group B. And then based on the conflicts of interest, we will randomly assign you 10 applications to review, to assess, and you will receive a form and the 10 applications.
Okay. All right, so another question is, what are the assessment criteria? I think we already paid attention to this, or you did during your presentation, but maybe short, because there's a few other questions we would like to also...
Yes, of course. So in short, the assessment criteria, we call them assessment aspects in this proposal, in this call for proposals, are in the call for proposals on page 12. It's the innovative aspect and it's the feasibility of the research plan. So both aspects, you need to consider both aspects writing your proposal. And they're not weighed in the way the assessor need to look at both. And it's up to the assessor to say, well, I think this research idea is mind-blowing and it's doable. So I rank this very high.
Okay, thanks. And then there's another question. So I think this is a burning question that most people have. How can a person in law and administration assess a social science project?
Well, that's a very good question. We ask you to write your proposal for a broad audience. And you know this beforehand, so if you know in which panel you submit your application, you also know what other disciplines will look at your application. So you have to write your applications for a broad audience.
Okay.
And so how to assess the application? Well, the person who writes the application should make it possible for you to assess also that application.
All right. Thanks again. More questions coming up. Is there an extension for applicants who have had a career break? For example, maternity leave or long-term sick leave?
So in this call for proposals, the extension guidelines do not apply. So you can look at the submission deadlines, and so there's not an extension possible on the 5 to 10 years after your promotion date.
Okay, well, that's a clear answer, I think. Then there's a question specifically about the following. In which panel does media studies fit? You can take a look at the call for proposals.
I have to look at the disciplines, sorry. Media studies. Well, we have a subdiscipline which is music, theatre, performing arts and media. And that's one of the disciplines in cultural science and linguistics. So maybe that's a good fit.
Yeah. All right. Then there's a question about PhDs. For candidates with 2 PhDs, which one will be considered? I think this a person means
The promotion date of which?
Yeah. Yes. I think, or maybe the discipline could be either. But maybe you can answer both.
Yes.
Just in case.
So, well, good for you to have 2 PhDs. Wow, amazing. I think you should look at your research idea and to see which fits, which PhD main discipline fits your proposal best. And then look and then use that promotion date of that PhD and use that main discipline. But if it's overlapping, then please write us an email and we can look closer at your specific case.
Situation, yeah.
Yes.
Because it's a very specific question.
It's very specific, yeah. And we'll try to work this out.
Okay, let me see. So there are a lot of other questions. Is there a similar mix of subdisciplines in each group? Or could there be a disbalance? For example, only 2 social sciences and 8 of law.
For you to assess, or
yeah, or just a general division between disciplines within. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there can be a disbalance because we're looking at the conflicts of interest. We're not looking at the type of disciplines. Well, first, of course, we look at the type of disciplines to make the division for panel 1, 2, and 3. But in the groups, we're not looking at the different disciplines. So there can be a disbalance. It could be the case indeed that one of the assessors will be asked to review 2 proposals from the social sciences and 8 proposals from another discipline. Because the program we use will distribute the applications randomly, and we don't keep in mind the type of discipline.
Yeah, okay. That's clear. Then there's another question. Is there no qualitative assessment between panels? What if all the best proposals are in one panel only?
Well, that's a very specific question. Well, the every application will be assessed by the same aspects. So, and the assessor will only see 10 applications. So, saying that the best applications are just in one panel or in one group, I don't think that's a fair thing to say. And we don't know. So, so based on your discipline, you're in panel 1, 2, or 3, and then based on the conflicts of interest, you're in group A or in group B, and your competition is within your own group. I hope this answers the question.
Okay, well, you can always call us if you feel this doesn't satisfy you with the answer isn't satisfactory, right?
Yes, of course.
Or email,
yes.
or call, or just engage.
Yeah,
with
maybe
us.
I don't understand your question, so and you would like to elaborate on your question, and then I can also elaborate on the answer. So you can also give me a call in the afternoon, because then I'm available again.
Okay. That's great. Let me see. Could you explain again how the division of assessment within a panel will be organized? Will the 2 subgroups be mixed, or will, for example, linguistics judge philosophy and vice versa? I think you already answered this question, but...
philosophy...
Well, philosophy and linguistics aren't together in a group, I think, or are they?
Yes, they are.
Oh, they are.
They
Sorry.
are.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't mean to confuse things.
So, well, so you submit your application in one of the main disciplines, and you also list your subdiscipline. And then based on the main disciplines, we have panel 1, panel 2, and panel 3. So in panel 1, we have a combination of behavior and education, and economics and business administration. In panel 2, we have a combination of law and public administration and social sciences. And then in panel 3, we have a combination of the disciplines of culture science and linguistics, and philosophy, historical science, and religious studies. So you're correct. People with a main discipline in philosophy will be asked, if it's assigned to you, to assess an application of the cultural sciences and linguistics.
Okay.
Hopefully this answers your question.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. That's great. Then for assessing feasibility, you have to assess the track record of the proposer. How would that be possible if the proposals are anonymous?
So the idea behind the extra small grants is that you are assessed based on your research idea. So we try to facilitate that you come up with a research idea, and that only your research idea will be assessed. You don't sell yourself, you don't sell your research group, or you don't sell your previous accomplishments. What you're selling, what you're pitching in your proposal is your research idea. And the research idea, the innovative aspect of that, and also the feasibility of your research idea is subject to assessment. The person behind the proposal is not being part of the assessment.
Okay, thanks. There are some more questions about conflict of interest and about eligibility and submission. I think there's a question how many times one can submit, and I think it's once, right? Once in this pilot, so we can
Yes, it's
answer that quickly.
yes, it's one time
Yeah.
in one of the 4 rounds. So you can choose in which submission deadline you want to submit. Please look at your promotion date if to see to which round you are eligible for, and then you can only submit one time in one of those 4 rounds of this pilot program.
Okay, great. And then there's a question, how will you deal with interdisciplinary topics, also transcending social sciences, for example, mathematics and physics? I think that might be a question that's related to the health sciences question we got earlier.
Yes, great question. I have to look it up.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
So I will have to discuss that with colleagues. So please send us an email and I'll come back to you.
Maybe maybe it's best if they contact you directly if
Yes,
this
please.
specific case comes up,
Yes.
because they're so specific that it's hard to answer them.
Yes, and I have to
knowing.
check that with colleagues.
Yeah.
So great questions, but I don't have all the answers. So for this question, I really have to come back
But
to
that's
you.
why we're here, because sometimes we don't know what kind of questions there are. We try to think of all of them, and that's why we have to ask you eventually, because we just don't see everything straight away.
Sure.
There's always one specific situation you haven't thought of. So then there's another question, or there are 2 questions. There may be a bit of tension between proposals being innovative, high risk, high reward, and feasible. It seems tough to score well on both aspects, as the first affects the other. This isn't really a question, more like a
Yes.
remark, but
True. Well, you know, you can come up with an amazing idea, but it needs to be feasible, because if it's not feasible, how can you do the research? So therefore, these 2 aspects. Yes, it needs to be innovative. You have to sell, you have to pitch your idea to the others. So I know it's a different way of writing your proposal, but if you believe in it, if you think this research idea is really great and innovative, and I can really make a change, I can contribute to science, just pitch that idea and try to make it feasible. Therefore, the budget is quite open. We try with the budget to really be able to facilitate your research idea, because your research idea is a core in this program. But I understand there is tension between them, and but please, because if you are granted, your innovative idea is granted, you need to conduct the research. So it needs to be able to be done.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds very logical, but yeah. Okay. Then there's a question I think you already answered, but let's talk about this shortly.
Okay.
Shortly again. Is it possible to apply if you're also eligible to apply for the talent scheme?
Yes. So in short, it's yes. If you meet the conditions of the call, you can apply for. Well, at the moment we have the VD. The deadline for the VD, I think, is the 6th of September. You can apply for the VD, and you can also apply for one of the rounds of the extra small. But please keep in mind that your proposals needs to be completely different, because NWO doesn't do double financing. So if you submit another application, it needs to differ from your application in the extra small. There cannot be any overlap, because we don't do double financing. And second, you have to look at the planning, because the talent program has a planning, of course, and maybe you have to prepare for an interview, but also in the XS you have a task as an assessor. So please look at both timelines if you are able to work on both.
Okay, I see a lot of questions still here, but we only have a few minutes left, so I'll pick out a few, and then we will have to round off this this session. So the one question is: will applicants receive a written feedback of their proposals?
Yes, because we ask the assessors to not only rank the 10 applications they receive to assess, but also to give a short explanation. And as an applicant, you will receive this short explanation. You will receive the ranking, the 10 rankings of your proposal, and you will receive these explanations. So you know, so you will receive information on why what your ranking is and why.
Right, right. Okay, thanks for that. If someone submits a proposal to panel 1, and is there any chance to review? Okay, I don't really get this. And is there any chance to review for panel 2 or panel 3 proposals?
There is a possibility.
Okay.
Which is, but in a rare case. So if you're part of panel 1, you will assess proposals of panel 1. In the last round, we don't have enough proposals for a specific panel. We have less than 20 applications in one panel. Then we will come back to those applicants and explain the situation that we're not able to assess, to do the assessment procedure. And we will ask you to look again at your proposal, and you'll be given the time to rewrite your proposal for a broader audience, because your application then will be part of a different panel.
Right.
And then your audience will be broader.
Okay. Then we have, I see 3 questions left. Maybe we can do those in 3 minutes, Nina.
Okay, I'll try.
You now assume that everyone gets 10 applications. Does this mean there is a ceiling to the number of applicants to reach these rounded down numbers? Or is there a chance that you will fall into a smaller group? It seems to me that not every proposal will get the same amount of evaluations.
We really, to be able to do this procedure, everybody will need to assess 10 applications. And if we receive not enough applications in one panel, we're not able to do the application procedure. And then, or the applications from that panel will go to the next round, or in the last round, the applications will be divided over other panels, so we will be able to assess, and each assessor will receive 10 applications to assess.
You mean by rounds, you mean deadlines and
yes,
rounds?
different,
Okay.
the 4 different rounds we have in this program.
Okay, thanks for that. And then there's a question about conflict of interest. Oh, wait, I'll see another question pop up. Will you discard any assessments if you decide that the assessment wasn't fair for some reason?
But we have to look at that. Of course, we will look at the rankings we receive, and also the assessments, the short explanations per ranking. And if something is not done in the right way or assessed in the right way, we will come back to that assessor, because that's our job. We have to make sure that the proposals are assessed in the right way.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think we will leave it at that. We have one more practical question, that is, will today's PowerPoint be shared with the participants? Well, actually, the entire webinar will be shared with the participants, so you will be able to watch this webinar again. Afterwards, it will be uploaded to, I think, YouTube, our channel, but we will let you know through the website.
Yes, and it will be part on the part of the program page.
Yeah.
So for the XS, please read the call for proposals. And if you have any questions left, or if I did not answer your question, correctly, please send us an email to sgw-ocxs@nwoo. NWOO. Do I say this correctly?
nwo.nl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the right email address.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that it's now time for Ilko van Dongen, who is my colleague. Welcome everyone to the, well, I'm switching right now between two sentences, but welcome everyone to the SSH Open Competition webinar for the M round. Next to me is my colleague Ilko van Dongen, and I am Maudie Lohaus. We will both present to you the Open Competition M round. I will first give you a short presentation about the content of the program, after which you will be able to ask us any questions that you have. So bear with me while I walk to the standing table to give this presentation. All right. We will have until 12 today. So I won't be talking very long. So we have enough time for you to ask questions and enough time for us to answer them. All right. Oh yeah, so the webinar will be recorded and published on our website. And please keep your audio on mute and ask any questions you have in the chat. Like with our previous session, questions are handled anonymously. First off, of course, we start off with the Mentimeter because we want to know who is watching and who is interested in this round. So why are you interested? Please go to menti.com and use the code 15380155. I already see people answering this question. And it's by now it's like an equal division between potential applicants and granting officers. I see many granting officers as well interested, so that's good. No others yet, and most of you, I think, are potential applicants. But I think this presentation and this webinar is interesting for all parties who are interested, of course, in the Open Competition M round. We will be talking about many different topics, so it's great that you all joined us today. I think we will move on to the next question. I think that we have mostly potential applicants here in our midst, so that's great to know. Oh, we have one other. I'm very curious now who this person is, but you don't have to tell us because it's anonymous. Then, for researchers, we have the question, what is your academic field of expertise? We would like to know so that we have an idea of where you come from academically and yeah, what we can expect a little bit when we have our deadline. I see many psychology. That was already the case, I think, for the Open Competition XS round. History, I see now, and philosophy as well, linguistics, communication science, criminology. Now I feel the pressure to actually name all of these because otherwise I will be sort of, it seems like I have a preference, although I don't. Public administration, neurology, game studies, nice. All right, so that's a lot of different disciplines that are popping up right now. I still see mostly history, psychology, and philosophy. Thank you for answering this question. It's always interesting for us to know, yeah, who is interested in the Open Competition and who also plans to apply. So moving on to the, I think, last question we have. Which subject would you like to hear more about during this webinar? We have a few listed, and please let us know what you're interested in. Assessment procedure, okay. Assessment criteria, what can be applied for. Okay, I see different answers popping up. Again, one other, curious as to what that subject is. But I guess we'll see in the questions later if I don't tackle that specific subject during the presentation. Okay, so most of you are interested in the assessment criteria. Well, we'll talk about those. Like I said, it's a short presentation, so if you still have questions after my presentation, of course, you're able to ask them during our question and answer session. Okay, so thank you for answering these Mentimeter questions. Now moving on to the content of the presentation. All right, so most of, or some of you might be familiar with the old open competition round, which looks a lot like the large one that's coming up in 2023, but I'll leave that subject for later. Right now we'll focus on the Open Competition M. So the funding is for research proposals across the social sciences and humanities. The focus is on curiosity-driven, innovative research, and applicants choose the type of funding required for their research. So the main budget is, actually the entire budget we can spend is 23.5 million. I was going to say dollars, I don't know why, probably because I'm talking in English, euros. The maximum budget you can apply for is 400,000 euros, and you can apply for different types of costs. So you can apply for funding for staff costs, material costs, investments, internationalization, and knowledge utilization. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So in order to be able to apply for this round, you have to have obtained your doctorate degree at least 10 years ago on the 1st of November. So if you received your doctorate degree the 1st of November 2012, you can apply for this round. If you received your doctorate the 2nd of November 2012, you cannot apply for this round. You have to have a tenure track appointment or a permanent position. We already talked about this a little bit during the XS session. What exactly is a tenure track appointment? Well, actually, we define what it is in our grant rules. You can find the grant rules on our website, but I will give a short definition of tenure track that we adhere to. So if you have the prospect of getting a permanent position while you're still at the moment in a temporary position, and if you have a prospect of becoming a professor on the long term, then you can apply. This means you have a tenure track appointment, or at least this is how we define it. This, however, has to be a written agreement between you and the university. So it has to either be in a contract of employment, or it has to be in a written document that you both signed, so that we know that there's an agreement that you are in a tenure track at the moment. You can submit one proposal per round. So we organize an M round this year. Next year there will probably be an open competition large round, and in 2024 we will organize another M round. You can only submit you can submit one proposal per round. So I mean, actually, this is a different condition. I mean actually that you cannot submit more proposals in this round, but also you cannot submit in successive rounds, which is the next condition. So you cannot submit, if you submit an application this year, you cannot submit an application next year, even though that's a different round, because we will organize the open competition large round next year, but you cannot submit then. So also please check the call for proposals, because there we have a very large amount of examples for if you want to apply in 1 year and what you can then do in the next year or can't do. So please check also the notes in our call for proposals to gain more information on that specific condition. So if you're currently receiving NWO funding, you cannot submit to this round until you're in the last year of your current project. And this holds true for funding after, I think, the 25th of September, if I'm correct from the top of my head, of 2018. Please check if I get the date correct in the call for proposals, but I think it's correct. So please do not submit until you're in the last year. And this holds true for every current NWO project. PhDs in humanities, NWA grants, anything that's NWO related, or NWO grant, I mean, you cannot submit until you're in the last year of your current project. let's go to the next slide. Is this the next slide? Yeah. Okay, so we have two possible timelines. If we receive more than, okay, help me out here, Ilko. If we receive more than 4 times the amount of applications we can grant, yes, okay, thanks. Then we will have a timeline with pre-selection. If we don't, then we have a timeline without pre-selection. So I will first talk about that last option. So the deadline will still be the 1st of November 2022 in either of the two situations. Then in the first half of February 2023, there will be a written assessment done by the committee members, by the pre-advisors, and there will be time for the applicants to give a response to these assessments. Then in March of 2023, there will be an assessment meeting for the committee members, and at the end of April, at the beginning of May, there will be a decision by the domain board about the entirety of the round and who will receive a grant. So this is the timeline without pre-selection. Then we have the timeline with pre-selection, still deadline 1st of November 2022. Then the first half of February, there will be given a provisional advice for pre-selection. Then the first half of March, there will be a final result for the pre-selection. And then in the second half of March 2023, the selected applicants will receive the possibility to write a written response. Then in April 2023, again, there will be an assessment meeting for the selected applicants. They will be discussed. And then at the end of May, the beginning of June 2023, the domain board will decide who will receive grant. Okay. Well, last slide for this presentation. These are the assessment criteria. I keep looking to the left, whereas my PowerPoint is also there. So there are 2 criteria. The first one is the research idea, which weighs in the most in this assessment procedure. So the sub-criteria are clarity of the research questions and the problem definition, quality of design approach and feasibility, and the scientific and societal impact. So these are the first, these are the sub-criteria for the first assessment criterion, the research idea, which weighs in 80% of your entire assessment, the entire assessment for your proposal. Then the second criterion is the quality of the research team, which weighs in 20%. So here the sub-criteria are quality of the applicant and the suitability of the research team. And this weighs in for about 20% of your of the assessment of your proposal. So you will submit your proposal to either one of the 6 panels listed on the right side of the sheet. You can see that we have a social sciences panel, behavior and education panel, cultural sciences and linguistics, economics and business administration, philosophy, historical and religious studies, and law and public administration. All right, for now, this is my presentation about the open competition M round. I will now, of course, move on to any questions we have, and Ilko will also assist in answering those questions. Oh, I will take this with me, maybe we need it later. Okay, I see that there are quite a few questions already. So do I start at the top or at the bottom of the questions? I think that I start at the top. Okay. So the first question that I have, I see, is the condition of having a permanent position or tenure track is not mentioned on the NWO website as the SGW Open Competition M. Yeah, it's mentioned in the call for proposals. So if you read the call for proposals, it lists all the possible or not all possible, it lists all the criteria that you need to meet in order to be able to apply, all the conditions that you need to meet. So yeah, it's in the call for proposals. Okay, Ilko, maybe you would like to answer our next question. What applies if you're a co-applicant of a thematic or a Marion call? Does that also mean you're not eligible?
Yeah, so the condition that you can only apply if you have no currently running NWO funding only applies to the main applicants and project leaders of such projects. So if you're a co-applicant, it doesn't apply. So then if you're only a co-applicant of such projects, it's fine and you can apply, and if you meet all the other conditions, obviously.
Yeah, and I think this one is related to that. Can you be a member of an NWA consortium and still apply for the OCM? I think the question.
Yeah,
the answer is
again,
yes.
if you're just part of the consortium and not the main applicant, then you can still apply.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. No former NWO grants. Just to confirm, that excludes Zon and May or NRO grants outside of VENI, VD, Vici. We don't say that you, well, I mean, you can have former NWO grants, right? But you cannot be currently involved in a NWO project unless you're in the final year of that project. And I think it includes, because ZonMB is technically a domain within NWO, right?
So I think very specifically, but if you have any questions afterwards, please ask us by mail or phone. But ZonMW would be seen as separate because it's not directly part of the NWO funding scheme. NRO is part of it, so technically, I guess, if you have an NRO project, it would fall within the umbrella. But if you have a ZonMW project, it wouldn't. But if you have specific questions about whether you are eligible with a current project, please let us know, because it might be specific. What also might be good to add in general is that it concerns all NWO projects, but we often get questions about how things like Aspasia, this diversity promoting grant, is this involved, because it can also be considered a project. And the answer to that is that if you have an Aspasia grant, it doesn't prohibit you from applying. So that is something that we don't consider an NWO project as such. So probably good to know.
Okay, thank you, Ilko. Just to clarify the rule that you cannot submit in successive rounds, is it possible to submit for the M rounds in 2022 and 2024? Yes, but you cannot then submit in 2023 for the large. So that, yeah, sorry, I was a little bit vague there, but yeah, that's the answer to your question. Is that rule bound? I don't know what rule. I don't know, it was deleted, I think, the question before that. But is it possible to submit a Vici pre-proposal if you also submitted an open competition proposal? Ilko, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, you can. I think similar to what Ninja earlier alluded to, of course you have to consider that you might have to do some work during the procedure, and if you can write a pre-proposal, it should be quite separate from the topic of your open competition and proposal. So NWO won't fund the same research twice, obviously. So you have to consider whether the proposals can be distinct enough, but there is nothing formally prohibiting you from doing so if you have separate proposals and can meet all the requested activities during both procedures.
Okay, thank you for that. Main applicants can only submit once per round, but how does it work if you plan to be a co-applicant? Well, you cannot, actually co-applicants are not allowed in this round. So only one applicant is allowed. Sometimes there's confusion. I've noticed in phone calls that I've had that the confusion between the applicant and the team member. So basically, well, there's only one applicant in this round, and then there's team members. They don't have the same status as an applicant, and only the applicant can apply for research leave, and whereas team members cannot. Before, we used to have, in the old open competition, we used to have the possibility to also apply as a co-applicant, and then you could, in that case, you could apply for research leave both as a main and a co-applicant. However, this is now no longer possible, so only the main applicant can apply for research leave, and then there are team members that can be part of the research team, but they don't have the status that the applicant has. So this is hopefully the answer to your question. Ilko, is it necessary to already mention concrete members of the research team, for example, PhDs, or is it possible to publish vacancies after the approval of the project?
Yeah, that's a question we often get. So it's of course possible to mention concrete candidates for positions or people you have in mind for executing your project. It's not required. So if you have to, if you basically don't know or want to have an open vacancy round after the project is granted, this is possible. In general, we advise you to mention as much as you can about who's going to actually execute the project. So even if you don't have a specific candidate in mind, it might be good to share some information about the kind of profile you're looking for, but it's all up to you basically. So the section on the research team is really to inform the assessment committee on who's going to pursue the research, who's going to be involved, and what will be their profiles and track records as far as that is known. But there's no strict requirements that everybody has to be known at the moment of submission.
Right. Okay. So what type of project do we expect for this round? Individual projects such as PhDs or postdocs, or more network projects? What kind of results does NWO expect for this round? Okay, so I'll try to answer this question. I think that what type of project? Well, I mean, of course you are limited by the possibilities of the budget modules, right? So I think that we say maximum of 2 PhDs,
Correct.
and then, no, 1 PhD I see we have. And then 2 postdocs.
Yeah,
2 postdocs. And then you can apply for non-scientific staff or other scientific personnel. So it all depends on how you plan to make a division between the costs for each budget module and yeah, what kind of project you want to start. Because, I mean, you could either apply for, I think it fits to apply for a PhD and then 1 postdoc, and then some material costs, or you could decide to apply for only postdocs and then your project already takes on a different form. So it really depends on what you have in mind for yourself and for your research idea, what kind of project you would like to start. So what kind of results do we expect? Yeah, I think that, I don't know, maybe you would like to answer this.
what Maudi basically said is basically what can you apply for. I think the other kind of underlying question may be what is NWO hoping for in terms of results of projects. I think there the question is quite simple. It's an open competition with a diversity of applications possible. We don't have beforehand a kind of a preference for any type of project. We really want to give researchers the opportunity to make their own choices in this regard and to see what fits their ideas. So we basically allow this freedom, and there's no thing that we a priori say we want to have like a network project or an project with like a single PhD student. That's really up to you as an applicant, and you won't be penalized or in other way preferenced if you choose either.
Right. Yeah, thanks for that very valuable addition. Maybe you'd also like to answer this question. Is it possible to combine a small funding acquired from an external funding body into the NWO Open Competition M project?
Yeah, so yes is basically the very short answer. In the sense that you can increase the budget of your application by co-funding in various ways. So if your own institution, for instance, wants to add a little bit of money, or you have an external party, or if there's a small grant, but it has to be made very explicit. If you have a grant that you want to add, then it may be just added in the budget in a way, or you may mention it in a proposal. If you really want to make it part of the type of cost you want to fund, it has to be really specified and also committed, like formally in terms of a letter or something. So the conditions for co-funding are specified further in the call, but it is possible to increase the amount of your project by adding external sources. And then in many cases, if you really want to use that, for instance, to add more personnel or material cost, you need to commit that in writing with a letter of guarantee. If you have any questions about that, we do offer a template for such commitment letters, but if you have any questions about the requirement and restrictions, please contact us, because they are often very specific to the case at hand.
Yes, okay. Then about the quality of the team, how detailed must that be? Do we need an expert committee as for larger grants? You refer to possible academic co-applicants? No. Or also societal partners. I assumed single author applications were common in the open competition. Okay, so there's a lot of questions all in one. So the quality of the team, how detailed it must be, it's up to you. And that sounds like I'm sort of giving the question back, but I think the more detail you can give, the better it is. So also, of course, if you don't, yeah, it's hard to really answer this question, but I think that if you know what you're going to want to do, that is the most important thing that a committee is looking for. If it looks like you know what you're doing, you know what you want to do, those are very important aspects of a research proposal. So also, if you're looking to form your advisory board, or I mean, an advisory board is not mandatory, an expert committee is not mandatory, but of course, if you want to include it, you can. What I said before is that academic co-applicants are not allowed in this round. However, you can include societal partners. They can be part of your research team, or they can be part of just, I mean, you can just name them in your underneath this criterion of the quality of the research team, and tell the assessment committee that you plan to work with this and this advisory board, or this and this organization, or this is all possible. And as far as single author applications, yeah, so this is I don't know if I interpret this question correctly, but yeah, only one applicant is allowed for this round. No co-applicants are allowed. Then there's another question. Can research teams have international team members, either based at non-Dutch universities or employed as consultants, Ilko?
Yeah, they can be. Basically, your research team can basically contain anybody that you want to involve in your research. Maudi already listed, for instance, societal partners or other organizations. But in contrast to earlier programs, there's no opportunity to directly fund them to, for instance, what we had in the previous call, money follows collaboration, because we don't have co-applicants. So you can involve them. They can definitely be involved in all ways, but there's no direct way to fund for instance, personnel at their location, but you can, for instance, ask for funding for their visits to you, or your visits to them, or to do part of the work there through the module internationalization. And this module has a base budget of 25,000 euros, but can be increased if your research demands more, and then you have to motivate this. So there's opportunities definitely to involve and to cover some of the costs that come with international collaboration, but directly funding personnel or material cost on site in other countries is not an option in this round.
Okay, and then there's another question. Can one also fund junior researchers under so other scientific personnel?
Well, that's kind of an open question. Because junior, certainly you can fund different types of personnel that your research requires, but there's different options for that. So depending on what you want to do, for instance, if you want to hire research assistants, you can do it, for instance, to such a personnel module, but it can in other cases also be possible to do it to the material cost, if it's like a small, if they're only involved in a small capacity. So it's possible, but it depends on, for instance, the appointment length and duration and all these things. So if you have specific questions based on the requirements of your call, just contact us, but it's in principle possible.
All right, thank you, Ilko. Then there's another question. What do you need to do when your application possibly falls under more than one assessment panel? I've had this question asked to me a few times before on the phone, and I understand the question. It's a legitimate question. So what I mostly tell those who call me with this question is that please look at the core discipline, like the discipline that lies at the heart of your proposal. I think that is the main discipline, and then the others are complementary. Or, I mean, if there's really equal division between disciplines, then of course it's hard to choose. If, for example, your proposal is equally divided between, I'm just naming some disciplines, philosophy and linguistics and maybe law, then it's hard to pick one panel. I understand that. But I would like to ask you if you have really a specific situation in mind for which this holds true, please contact us, because every situation is different and it really requires a specific individual a treatment to look at the situation and then check what kind of advice we can give you to apply for the different panels. So please contact us with your specific situation so that we can best answer this question. And then there's a question if the proposals will be sent out to external reviewers. They won't. So the only people who will be assessing your application will be the committee members. So that also tackles the question, who are the assessors? Those are the committee members. That's the answer, I think. Then maybe Ilko. The call says you can fund 1 PhD, but if I can fund 2 Africa-based PhDs stationed with partner universities at local salaries, can I fund 2?
Yeah, I think this point may relate to what I previously alluded to regarding money follows collaboration. The PhD students that you can request funding for in the call are based in Dutch institutions, so they are based on Dutch salary scales and are to be appointed at Dutch research institutes or universities. In that sense, it's not directly possible to apply for, say, a PhD student at an African university. It is possible that someone appointed at the Dutch university does field work or does a large part of his or her work on site, but it's not directly possible to give the funding to the Dutch from the Dutch PhD bursary to an African PhD candidate at the African institution. So that's something that's not directly possible.
Okay. Yes, thanks for that. Let's see if I understand this question correctly or if it's more of a comment than a question. It says, so the beta domain gets bi-yearly calls for M size, but humanities, social sciences only once every few years. If I understand what has been said, there will not be yearly calls. There will be yearly calls, although they will differ in their size, not in their not in the size of the amount of money that we that you can apply for. I mean, okay. Let's start this all over again. So we will organize funding rounds every year, but this year we will organize, for example, the XS pilot and the Open Competition M round that has a deadline in November, and you can apply for a maximum of 400,000 euros. Next year, we will organize an Open Competition large round, and then you can probably, we're still figuring this out, but we expect that you can apply for a maximum of 750,000 euros. And that's similar to what you could apply for in the previous old Open Competition round. And then the year after that, so in 2024, you can apply again for an Open Competition M round with a maximum amount of 400,000 euros. So I hope this sort of clarifies things.
It may also be good to add that the domains make their own decisions on the distributions of their money. So the domain board basically considers the different needs of the different fields, which of course the beta field cannot be directly compared to the social science and humanities field as a whole. So there might also be a difference in how they allocate the funding to different instruments, which means that the frequency or size of different programs might differ, even though they might have similar goals. So any difference that you might observe can also be due to such more difference at the level of policy decisions being made.
And to add a very important comment, that the beta domain receives more funding for the open competition. So that's also a reason why we do the things we do, and we can do the things we can do, and we cannot do other things that we would like to do, maybe. So there's another question. Where can we find the numbers of personnel costs for the budget module? Can you give some rough numbers? What does a full-time PhD and a full-time postdoc cost per year? Oh, gee. I don't know the salary tables from the top of my head. Do you know those?
I think, so generally, since a PhD student takes about 4 years, I think current tariffs are about 260,000 euros, roughly, approximately, for that full period. The salary tables can be found on the NWO website, the current ones. We always use the most current tariffs set by the Collaboration of Universities in the Netherlands, UNL, or if you're from an academic hospital, those of the NFU. And these actually give you the exact amounts that you need for the application and give you an estimate. The budget form that we shared also calculates this for you. So in the sense that if you want to just play around with the different amounts of appointments and or length of such appointments, you can also use the budget form to see what it amounts to. But if you want an overview, you can go to nwo.nl and search for salary tables, and you will find a list of the different applicable tariffs.
Okay, thank you, Ilko. Then there's a question about co-financing, co-funding. The call states, indeed, that the co-financing should be 50% of the total project budget, at least. What then about smaller amounts of contributions by external partners? I don't know if you'd like to answer that.
So maybe this is maybe I can clear up the confusion here. So the important underlying point is that NWO has to be has to provide the majority of the funding for your project, which means that at most the co-funding can amount to 50%. So not at least, but at most. And of course, it's also possible to just ask for only NWO funding. So co-funding is certainly not required, but if you do want co-funding to be included, it can be at most 50% of the total grant.
Yeah, because it says here in the call, in case of co-funding, the funding requested from NWO must always amount to at least 50%. So the funding you receive from us must at least be 50%, and any other funding can at most be 50%. Okay, so there's a question, is there a way of buying out time for the main applicant? There is the research leave option. Does that mean we should ask our institution to budget the cost of being away for an X amount of months? Maybe you would also like to answer that.
Yeah, so if there's any desire to indeed like buy out some research time, then the research leave is the way to go, basically, for this instrument. This is at most 5 months of full-time research leave. You can divide that as you wish, also in smaller amounts of FTE over a longer period, so over the whole course of the project. What basically happens is the MBO will fund it with the view that it should be used to fund the activities that are not basically that are undertaken during your research leave by somebody else. And this is always at a fixed budget of the postdoc. So we basically say we give you this amount of money to find a replacement, for instance, for administrative or teaching duties for that period. And that's the amount of buying out that we can allow, and that can be budgeted in that way. If this is sufficient for the specific activities, that will be up to you and your institution. That will very much depend on what kind of position you hold or what kind of duties need to be replaced. So I can't really give a general answer to that, but you will basically, as you with your institution will know that you can then depend on a certain amount from NWO to cover that, and how you spend that has to be, of course, be motivated, but you are free to do that with that amount of money as you wish, as long as you're motivated how it is spent in the end.
Okay, so here's a question about the lack of expert peer review. So here's someone who says, I'm concerned about the lack of expert peer review of proposals. How can NWO guarantee accurate disciplinary outcomes without getting expert reviewers? How are the panel members appointed, and do we know in advance who they are? Okay, well, first of all, the expert reviewers, they have been excluded from this process for several reasons. First, because we have a smaller amount to request in this funding round than we do, for example, for the large round, and also because it shortens the procedure enormously. Then, how do we make sure that we get accurate disciplinary outcomes? Well, and can we tell you who the committee members are? I will get to that. So we are currently in the process of appointing committee members for the Open Competition M round. And we're looking across not only the Netherlands, but we're looking internationally. So this is the first time actually that we have introduced this into our funding rounds, at least the SSH Open Competition. So we're also trying to, or actually no, we're going to include international committee members. And we make the panels extra large for the M round, kind of confusing, so as to make sure that we include as many disciplines as we can for that specific panel. You won't know beforehand who will be the committee members. You will know after the round is complete. We will communicate the names of the committee members on the website. And of course, like we always do though, when we assign a specific application to a pre-advisor, we always look at which discipline fits best. And we also are going to do that in this specific round. Then, in addition to this, you also get the possibility to write a response to your assessment. So in case you feel like anything at all has not been handled correctly, you can also tell us this in your written response. So I think this is the answer to your question. And then there's the question, Ilko, how are the funds distributed across the different panels?
Yeah, good question. This is something we actually assign based on the number of applications that are being sent in. So we have a total amount of 23.5 million euros to divide, and these will be divided on the basis of the amount of proposals for each panel. So say one panel has more, twice as many proposals, the amount of funding will also increase commensurately. So in that sense, we make sure that everybody basically has a similar chance of getting funded based on the panel they. So there's no, the panel division is therefore not based on, say, a strict 1/6 of the total budget, but on what comes in. Because we can't, of course, not know until the deadline how this distribution will look like. I cannot give you the amounts at this point, but this will be the principle of the matter.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then there's the question, where and how do societal partners come in? Do you need written statements that they will allow research in their organization? No, we don't need any written statements that you that the partners will allow research in their organization. However, what we do require is at the very bottom, looking for the word, of the application form, you can find a few boxes you need to check. And one of those boxes includes a statement that you say that you've discussed this proposal with all the people you have named in your proposal. So this includes all the people you plan to add to your research team. You must have discussed that you've added them to your research team. This seems like a very logical thing to do, but we've noticed some people don't. So please do that beforehand. Make sure that you've discussed who's going to be on your research team, and discuss also with those people that they're going to be part of it, and then check the box and you're done. So where do they come in? They come in to enhance in any way the execution of your proposal. So this is up to you, basically, to give form to your research team. I think you didn't answer the question how we can know who the committee members are. Well, I mean, obviously, during the assessment procedure, you won't know who the committee members are. But eventually, after the round is finished, after we've given out grants, we will communicate it on the website, the names of the committee members, their disciplines, and where they come from, which universities, which institutions. So I hope this does answer the question. If I still haven't answered it, please let me know. You mentioned you're not allowed to apply for an M call in 2022 and an L call in 2023. Is this restriction applicant-based or proposal-based? In other words, is one applicant allowed to apply this year to the M with one proposal and to the L call next year with a completely different research idea?
No, is the very short answer. So it's regardless of the type of proposal. So if you have a different proposal, the answer is still no. It also is not dependent on the result of the round or any other way. So it's really just as long as you submit to the OCM this year, you won't be allowed to submit anything next year as an applicant.
Yeah. Okay, then we have other questions. Last year, is that the last calendar year or the last year till the end date of a project? This one, the last year till the end date of a project. And what if in the last year an extension is granted? Well, then you have to take into account the extension, I'm afraid. So we will count back from the date that is your current end date of your last running project of NWO. So also if you received an extension, then yeah, this date will be looked at to define if you're currently in the last year of your project. Then Ilko, do I understand correctly that it is impossible to apply for a PhD unless there's co-funding?
No. That's if that's the point you got across, then we may have miscommunicated something here. No, you can directly apply for a PhD position without any co-funding. So just based on the amount of funding you request from NWO. Of course, you can, if you wish, you can indeed request a PhD also, including some co-funding, but it's not required. So again, co-funding is completely optional. So you can just use the maximum amount of 400,000 euros to basically to spend amongst the different modules as you wish without needing any co-funding, and this includes any PhD or postdoc positions that fund that fall within this boundary.
Exactly, and then there's a question relating to this one. Should one apply for the full amount of funding? No, you don't have to. You don't have to spend the entire 400,000 euros. The minimum amount you can apply for is €1, although that will be hard, I think. Does NWO have an estimate of or an expectation about the potential success rate of an application? We don't yet have an idea. This is because we don't know how many people will apply. So we know how much money we have, but we don't know how many people will apply. And depending on how many people will apply, we can know what the success rate is. So, I mean, if everybody applies for 400,000 euros and we have 23.5 million euros to spend, you can make a calculation of how many grants we can give away, although we still cannot say anything about the success rate. Because this all depends on how many of you will apply for this round. Then there is another question. It seems the conditions of the renewed open competition have moved closer to those of the talent program. What are the most important differences between the two schemes? Are both equally competitive, for instance?
Well, it's hard to say. First of all, since this is a new instrument, we really have no historical basis to say either way. If we look at the open competition of the past rounds, it was generally a bit less competitive than the talent scheme, but still quite competitive. I think that the main difference is in how the talent scheme is still quite focused on the person. So they're more like person-based grants, whereas the open competition is more open to a diversity of grants which are less focused on, say, the applicant as a person. But other than that, the competitiveness is for this current scheme is very difficult to predict. Like Maudi said just previously, we don't know how many people will apply. So yeah, that we will see. But the past few rounds of the old scheme were generally at a slightly higher success rate than, for instance, the VD or the Vici schemes had in the past. But that's, again, no guarantees how this will be in the future and in this current scheme.
Yes. Then there's a question, can you say how many panel members each panel has and how many members will review a proposal? So we're aiming for a minimum of 20 panel members, right? And it might differ across panels how many exactly will take part in a panel. And how many members will review a proposal? I think we're aiming for 5?
4.
Four.
Yeah.
So yeah, 4 panel members will be reviewing a proposal. Then there's a final question I see here on the XS for you, Nina. So you can have the last word. Late question on the XS. When will the pilot be evaluated? In other words, when will we know whether there will be another XS round in upcoming years?
Well, we will evaluate the pilot program during the pilot. We will be monitoring and we will evaluate during the 4 different rounds. And as soon as the 4th round is closed, we will discuss this evaluation, and in the meantime also looking at if we can indeed have a follow-up program. So the evaluation will be done during, so we can as soon as the 4th round is completed, we will have an evaluation. At the moment, we're already looking at which things we would like to evaluate. So the evaluation plan is already written, at least the things we want to evaluate. So we know beforehand the data and information we need to gather during the pilot in order to be able to evaluate the program in the right way.
Thank you, Nina. In the meantime, there have been other questions.
Yes, of course, of course.
Okay, so Ilko, maybe you can answer this one. Will the same committee members look at a proposal during all phases of the procedure, or will this differ?
Yes, so I think there we previously said, so we will have the 4 committee members from a panel deliver kind of the preliminary advice, so there will be the pre-advisors. These will provide their assessment, and this will be what this feedback will be what you as an applicant will be able to respond to. But the whole committee from the panel will in the end during the assessment meeting discuss all proposals. So in the sense there will be those nearest to the disciplines and topics of your proposal will provide this preliminary assessment, but the full panel will discuss all available and judge all proposals throughout the round. So in a sense, yes, the same people will continuously look at it, but at the same time there will also be more an overall judgment by the panel as a whole. This is, of course, we can't exclude that for practical reasons people have to drop out of the committee, which is always a chance, but the intention is to have people participate in the panel for the full duration of the assessment procedure.
Thank you for that. Then there's a question, the call is open for inter-cross-disciplinary research. Is this represented in the committee composition? In other words, do you specifically search for committee members that do inter-cross-disciplinary research themselves? Okay, so we have to deal with these 6 assessment panels, right? Those are the panels that we work with. So within, of course, these panels, there are different disciplines. I mean, you have cultural sciences, you have linguistics, those are very different disciplines. So of course, we also do look for committee members who are working interdisciplinary. We're also looking at, I mean, we're looking basically, I think, at committee members who can assess a broad aspect of a broad range of research, should I say, within the specific disciplines that are part of a panel. So in that way, we try to engage as much with interdisciplinarity as we can. Although, of course, there are probably always possibilities of interdisciplinary collaboration possible. Possibilities, I mean, there are possibilities of interdisciplinary collaboration that we might not be able to fully grasp within these assessment panels. So this is why we also ask you to write your proposal for a broad audience, like Nina also said for the XS round. Take into account that you're writing it for, well, if you apply for the, for example, Economics and Business Administration panel, please keep in mind you're writing it for experts that are working within these fields. That is what you should keep in mind. And of course, this is already also interdisciplinary in a way. So not in a way, it is interdisciplinary. So I think there's one last question which is great because we have only 6 minutes left. If an open competition project is granted, is it still possible to apply for other NWO calls, such as the talent scheme? Well, maybe you can answer that, Ilko.
Yeah, that's a question we often get as well. Good question. I think it's important to realize that the conditions for the open competition are specific to that program. So if we say that with the currently running project you cannot apply to the open competition that doesn't mean that you cannot apply to other programs, for instance the talent scheme, if these do not have this restriction. Currently they do not. So if you get an open competition grant and you qualify for any of the talent scheme rounds, then you can still apply. So that's not a problem. Again, assuming you don't request money for exactly the same thing, but that should be obvious, I would assume.
Okay, I keep saying this is the last question and then another question pops up. It doesn't matter because we still have time. So there's a question, will the committee consist of equal number of Dutch and non-Dutch members? Well, we're aiming for 30% of the committee to be international. And then at a minimum, we would like 3 international committee members in each panel. So this gives you an indication of what the division will be. Although, of course, if you're working at a Dutch university, doesn't mean you're always Dutch, right? So you can be you could have worked across the world, all over the world, and then you could have come to a Dutch university working there right now. This could also be considered international. So yeah, we're aiming for a large amount of people that know their way around the academic field across the globe, basically. I think this is really the last question. So I would like to hereby thank you also on behalf of Ninja and Ilko for your attention, for your engagement with us, and for your questions. Please let us know if there's any questions that have not yet been answered. Please do contact us at sgwoc@nwo.nl. This is the email address for the open competition round. If you have any question about the please send it to us through email. Ilko and I will be happy to answer your questions. Also, you can call us. Our phone numbers are in the call for proposals. And then I guess I would like to wrap up the webinar and thank you again. Have a great remainder of the day.